Hello YouTube, this is George from HRJ Customs. Just checking in really quickly, just going to give you some updates on some of the things we're doing here in the shop. I'm going to make this quicker, just give a brief bit of information on what I'm doing and some of the choices that I'm making for some of our projects here within the shop. We are building a grudge car to run out of the shop here. Of course, in the grudge world, you're not supposed to let anybody know what you're doing. But because I'm kind of a different situation, I am going to reveal a little bit about what we're doing, not the whole deal, but we'll talk about some of the choices that I've made and why we've made them, and try to give some information that might be helpful to others. So the car is going to run a small block for the time being. Many in the grudge world are using the LS. They're taking junkyard motors and they're running LS combinations. It is very cheap and very usable and powerful, and the blocks are very strong. But I just chose to go a different way. I come from cylinder head world, and so I was looking for something that was same kind of answer, cheap and affordable, but really had some potential upstairs in the RPM range because I come from Competition Eliminator. So I just want to quickly show what we're going to run and why I made that choice. You can see the difference in the port dimensions. Of course, this is a smog head from the 1970s, so it's pretty small compared to basically anything. It was really kind of a low performance 307. So there's nothing really to these cylinder heads, but they were, the design worked. I remember I had on a race car years ago, I had a set of bow tie heads. They weren't all that much different as far as the port design. Maybe the size was different, the chamber was different, but the layout and everything else was pretty much the same. Versus this SB 2.2 head, which has the spread port design, very big. More of a kind of oval-ish kind of shape, which is a shape in the cylinder head port world that works really well. And these obviously are just a marked difference. It's a spread port intake design, so the intake is different. Everything is different. Nothing crosses over per se. This will bolt on a standard block because it's NASCAR world. I think that is. I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I think that was one of the rules, that they had to bolt on the cylinder head bolts had to be virtually the same, but then they had some leeway in some other areas, obviously. Okay, you can also see this is a real illustration of the canted head design, because you've got the springs that are opposing each other like a big block Chevrolet would. The difference here is that you can see those two springs that are right next to each other. Those are the two bad guys there that tend to get hot in the middle. Those two springs sitting right next to each other. That's not like big block Chevrolet. On big block, they are spread. They are spread. The exhaust ports are spread apart from each other. So it's a design that they had to do. Again, I think this was a NASCAR rule that they had to have the same layout as a standard Chevrolet cylinder head, and so that's why they had to sign those exhaust ports like that. Just really quickly, you can see this smog head had the accessory hole here in it for alternator, and brackets would go on for alternator, AC, power steering, and everything. On this NASCAR head, I don't know, AC? No, I'm just kidding. They do, of course, run a power steering in NASCAR. And on some of these NASCAR combinations, and they run alternator, etc. So all that stuff is still there. You can tell the difference. Another difference that you can see, it's the difference in the height. This is the intake side here and the intake side here. There's a big difference between these two. and their height. I've got these virtually at the same height, the same distance from each other. And you can see the difference in the height too, because that spread port, it allows the port to have more of an angle up, like where my hand is kind of going. And it's a straighter shot at the intake valve. And that's one of the keys to making more power with these things. Just wanted to wrap up just this quick video on these cylinder heads. Yes, the LS stuff is out there and it's cheap, and you can certainly do one of those junkyard builds and go pretty fast with them. Just chose not to do that on this one. I come from cylinder head world. I was a cylinder head porter, cylinder head designer, things like that. And so it's kind of against my nature to just pull something straight out of the junkyard and then just try to make it go fast. I know they are fast. There's nothing wrong with them. We put them in customer cars, and they're happy. So, but I just chose on my personal project to just do something a little bit different. We're going to try to control the detonation in those two cylinders by running a fuel that may be a little bit cooler. That might give you a little bit of a hint, right? But we will certainly make pretty good power with these cylinder heads, and we'll be able to get some RPM, and that's something that should help this combination pretty well. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. Make sure to support us, buy our Ran One Park shirts. If you go to our site, you'll see a link to buy them. We have shirts and hats and scullies and things like that. We're going to be coming out with some new products here coming up pretty soon. Some things like license plate frames and things of that nature. So please support us and share us. Click our links. Support the people who support us. And we'll see you next week.